Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Hey, we're back on the Secret Friends Unite Podcasting Network. This is Code 47, episode 158. I am Charlie Carden, your Trek Lord of West Michigan, your humble servant, joined as always by my number one, Mr. Peter Stein. Good afternoon, my friend.
Good afternoon.
And one of our returning guests has returned to us, Tom Salinsky from across the pond over in the UK. Tom, it's great to see you.
It's great to be here.
All right. Very good. Well, we got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about the end of the third season of Strange New Worlds with its 10th episode. And then we're going to do a little walk back of how we felt about the episode and some thoughts about what we can hopefully expect when we get season 4 in 2026. But first and foremost, I always like to give a little love and respect to the good folks over on our Secret Friends Unite Patreon over at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. Exclusive programs, our shows come out early, and Discord benefits for as little as $2 a month after you have a free 7-day trial. Have your first month for 50% off, and then you're off to the races. So would love to have you over there. Your Patreons who's listening to my voice, thank you for who you are. That's a number that changes, so it's hard for me to keep up and always be reading that list. So I just want to let you know that we love and respect you and glad that you are with us. So again, please visit patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. We look forward to seeing you over there. So it's been a week of some new. Yes. Sorry about that little technical issue. As I'd mentioned a couple of weeks ago, new laptop, new challenges, but got a couple of news stories to talk about this week. So we're going to jump on into this. Peter, you're a little more educated in this topic than me. So why don't you tell me about this announcement about Star Trek and Magic the Gathering?
All right. So we got an announcement a couple of days ago that Star Trek is doing a partnership with Magic the Gathering to release some builder decks. So if you are familiar with Magic the Gathering, it's a deck building game that allows you to play against at least one opponent and use various different cards to have various different powers and resources, and you blow each other up.
Awesome.
This is, that's super simplistic, but this is a continuation of collaborations that Magic has been doing with various franchises over the last couple of years. Last year we had Doctor Who. The year before we had Lord of the Rings, and we've had a couple others. I don't think Star Wars has made it on their list yet, but it'll be there. So this was a collaboration that I was not expecting, but I wasn't expecting Doctor Who either, because sci-fi and magic is just an interesting mix.
Yeah.
This may cause me to go buy a deck.
That's what they're counting on. That is exactly why they do it.
But be forewarned, I do have friends who work in that industry, and those are expensive. So if you want them, they are very pretty. The artwork is very, very nice. And they are very cool, and you can get foil ones. It's a collectible card game. So anyone who knows like Pokemon and things like that, all the same rules apply.
Oh, gotcha.
But it looks like there's going to be like commanders and all of the things that you get from Magic, just with lots of cool Star Trek add-ons. And it looks like we're starting with TNG and TOS. It didn't show a lot of other stuff from any of the other shows, so I'll be curious to see how many things they have, because I think with like Doctor Who they had like 4 commander packs, then all the little things. So there might be a pack per captain, there might be a commander pack per show. I don't know. We don't have the details yet. We just know they'll be coming out in 26.
Wow, gotcha. Tom, do you have any experience with Magic the Gathering? Is that a big thing overseas?
I'm sure it is. I have a friend who is super into Magic the Gathering, and earlier this year had a Magic the Gathering party for his birthday.
Wow.
So we all had to go to the pub and learn to play Magic the Gathering. And I think at the end of 3 hours, I was more confused than I was before I sat down.
That tracks.
It's not a huge part of my life, and I think even the presence of a Star Trek or a Doctor Who pack is probably not going to be sufficient to bring me over. But for those who love it, go with God.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, he's bringing something out. So, and yeah, they're way ahead. This says November 2026 as when we would look forward to seeing it. So I'm excited. I would love to see how it evolves. I know over on the other side of the fence for Marvel Comics right now, they're cranking out, or they're combining the Marvel Legends series, which is something that I collect. There's a series of 4 figures that are coming with packs, so they're slightly more expensive than the regular figure, but they snuck one in there. That is what I've been looking for. So I'm going to end up with some cards anyway. So maybe I'll have to evaluate how I feel about it at that time. I'm just not exactly sure. So sorry about the pause again. We are having an interesting episode for technical challenges. But the second thing that came out this week, and I've been following this, Peter's been following this for a very long time, is that there's a YouTube channel. Peter, I didn't click on the link. What's the name of the YouTube channel?
It is. Hang on. I will get it. It is.
Oh, I see it now. No, I don't. I'm lying.
JTVFX.
Gotcha. Just a fan cast, so think about it like a fan film. But this was a very elaborate one. They've been tracking for maybe 1 or 2 years now. It's been at
least 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, that they've been kind of recreating your exterior visuals from one of the most famous conflicts of all of Star Trek, which is Wolf 359 from the Best of Both Worlds 2-parter from 1990. And it was just absolutely spectacular. But due to the limitations, obviously, of the time and other elements going on in that story, you did not see this battle. You saw the aftermath of it. There was a lot of talk around it, and it's wound its way up to. And this says the Massacre Part 2.
Yeah,
the Massacre Part 1 I think was much shorter. This was 30 minutes.
Yeah, which is wild. There's 4 videos. There's the Prelude Part 1, which is 8 minutes and change. There's the Prelude Part 2, which is 8 minutes and change. There's the Massacre Part 1, which is 10 minutes and a half, and then there's this, which is 30.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so this is the whole shebang-a-bang. So, Tom, had you been following this at all? Was this on your radar, so to speak?
I'm afraid to say no, but I had a just quick look at it before I came on. It looks amazing. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. I'm going to.
Oh, it's absolutely spectacular. There are some recreations of characters we know, such as Lieutenant Commander Benjamin Sisko, who escapes, but you see him in that uniform that we see him in the kind of the framing sequence from the first episode of DS9. You see, once again, you see Todd Stashwick as the young ensign. Why am I drawing a blank on his last name? Liam Shaw, thank you, who escaped the battle. And then you see, and I had the actor's name up while we were looking at it, and he's since passed away. He died in the late 1990s. But they have him as Captain Amisoff of the Endeavor, which is a name that gets dropped in Voyager. In the Scorpion 2-parter, a portion of his log gets read, and it's a British actor. He was in Alien 3. He was the warden. It was Peter something, and he died in 1997. I should look his name, but they must have gotten, I would imagine if they didn't get permission to use his likeness, somebody's getting sued, but it was this dude who was, no, it was the guy who was the warden in that movie, who also was
3 years.
Yeah. I think we watched it at some point last year, but being that I'm not going to, try to waste too much time looking it up. If you're listening to this and you find it, send it back to us on one of our socials. But so this is an absolute,
repurposed footage, or are these AI recreations, or
this is
CG, or what is this?
I think it's probably it's a little bit of both. I mean, the image of Avery Brooks they used from the Emissary, that was repurposed. It was repurposed still because the people aren't really moving around, but they do slide in some footage from, was it the Star Trek Borg video game, the video portion of it?
Yeah, so there's actual footage from Best of Both Worlds, actual footage from Emissary, and then there's footage from the Borg video game.
Right.
So there's not any new footage was either like digital arms that didn't do a whole lot, or like generated stills of people that were
The generated stills were kind of the biggest part that I noticed. But yeah, that's where you got that actor, and I tell you, I should have looked this up while we were talking, and I apologize because I will get you that actor's name. But it was this guy, and somebody drew hair on him and gave him a goatee, but it was no, that's the guy from Alien 3. Yeah, I'm going to look this up. I just can't take it anymore. So Alien 3, which was from 1992. And his name was Brian Glover. There you go. Brian Glover.
Oh, yeah.
Passed away in 1997.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I know that's
also in Doctor Who's Attack of the Cybermen.
Oh, there you go. So it's kind of a weird grab, but it's a great one. So now, even though this is not quote unquote canonical, it does give you a kind of a third arm of what I like to call headcanon. So in headcanon, Captain Amazoff, who you never saw, who was a famous Starfleet captain, so much so that Janeway read one of his logs and imitated his voice, at least in Chakotay's estimation, in the Scorpion Part 1 that we were talking about from Voyager. Now you can put a face to a name if you so choose. But yeah, absolutely love it. Highly recommend that you go check it out. I will do my very best to put the show notes, put the link in the show notes, but it is over on our Discord in one of our Star Trek channel there. So please do go watch this, or just search for Wolf 359: The Massacre Part 2 over on YouTube, and you will be glad that you did. So. All right, moving on. Strange New Worlds coming to an end. What has been, we've been on this journey for the last several episodes that we've been talking about this show. We've had guests on every week to kind of split the difference between, just the two talking heads that are Peter and I. And we're enthused to have, Tom come in here and lend his voice. Tom, recap for a while since he's been on. What is your connection to Star Trek? You are a published author in the Star Trek space. Give me 30 seconds on your works.
I'd always been a science fiction fan. I'd watched Star Trek Next Generation when it was on the BBC in the 90s, and then I'd bought the Blu-rays. But a while ago, I decided I needed to do Star Trek properly, and I figured out that if I watch an episode of Star Trek every day for 2 years, I can get from Kirk to Archer.
Love it.
And so I chronicled that first in a book, first in a blog, and then in a book, and then the book became 2 books, and 2 books became 3 books, the third of which is out next April.
They multiply. It's amazing. But we've been happy to have somebody on here to kind of split the difference and go in between what Peter and I have saying. We've had a great slew of guests. I'm very thoughtful to our regular contributors. Actually, if you visit our Secret Friends Unite webpage and go to the Secret Friends Squad, we actually have little bios of all of our regular contributors, of which Tom is one of them. And so we're very grateful for that. But yeah, let's jump on into it. And whoops, I'm navigating between my pages here. Season 3, episode 10 is New Life and New Civilizations. As Batel prepares to leave the Enterprise to take up her new role, the crew discover that Vesda, I'll get more on that later, has escaped the transporter pattern in a reconstruction of Gamble's body. Corey finds a Gamble at a doorway to the Vesna prison, and the Enterprise runs off to rescue him. So, Tom, I'll start here with you. So you've obviously been following Strange New Worlds like everybody else has. How do you, in kind of 30 seconds or less, how have you enjoyed the season so far?
I'm really up on Strange New Worlds as a whole. I really like it. I like this crew. And the fact there's only 10 episodes a year, as opposed to like the 20 to 25 that we got back in the old syndication/network days, means that there's a lot more pressure on each episode. And I don't think there were any outright disasters out of these 10. I think they're all good to great in my estimation. But the finale, for me, wasn't one of the absolute highlights. There's stuff I liked, stuff I really liked, but it felt a bit oddly paced. Did anyone really think that Batel and Pike were going to live happily ever after? Because I definitely did not.
Well, I mean, they've simply teed it up, and for a show, and we'll just kind of jump right on into it. For a show that's portrayed itself as a prequel on the road to the original series, there are certain things that we know are immutable. And one of the things is that, Pike, crippled in this accident, has no one. So he's in a room on a starbase, 1 beep for no, 1 beep for yes, 2 beeps for no. Yeah. And he doesn't have anybody else in his life. And the eventual solution is to deliver him to Talos 4 so he can live out this fantasy life outside of his broken body with this fantasy woman who he knew from 15 years earlier, so yeah. So you had to figure she was going to get broomed at one point, but it was the question of figuring out how exactly. Yeah. So, All right, let's switch gears. Peter, first bites for you. Where are we at?
For this episode?
Yes.
I also had mixed feelings about this one. It obviously had things that had to come back because we had Vesda in the transporter buffer, even though I think I said when that episode came out, why would you leave someone in the transporter buffer? Pull a Kirk and,
yeah. Now you know why they did it.
The episode with Jack the Ripper. I can't remember his name. Wolf in the Fold.
Oh, the Wolf in the Fold.
Yeah. So where you just, they disperse the molecules. There's no way he's coming back from that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, why didn't you do that? No, because we have to save him for the finale. So I thought that this was a little strange for that reason. One, second, that he was able to reconstitute the body. My understanding is that's not generally how transporters work.
Right.
So
and how it brought him back even with
the missing eyes and everything.
With the missing eyes, but he was wearing a different outfit. Of course,
his outfit. As much as I get on New Trek for ripping off Mass Effect, they chose a different material for his costume this time.
Oh, okay.
This is a hive wizard from Destiny 2.
Oh, well, how could I have not known?
It's fine. Just the minute he walked on screen, I was like, I have blown these things up before. But so it was an interesting idea with having the Vesda be like this sort of god on this planet and then trying to release all of its compatriots to go terrorize the universe. It felt very much like they were riffing on what little we actually know about the Iconians, because the language that they kept using, I was like, okay, when are we going to start talking about the demons of
air and
darkness? We didn't, so they're not the Iconians. Thank the great bird. But it was definitely leaning in that regard. I thought that it was interesting that we kind of had a sort of inner light, sort of something else bit where Batel is managing to break the confines of time, and so she and Pike are kind of able to have a complete life. At least that's the implication. A complete life by themselves until it's like, oh wait, I'm going to die now, and so now I need to go do my thing. Okay,
I'm going to die now. Bye. That's kind of what it felt like.
So that was interesting. I thought it was an interesting way for like her to get like the strength that she needed to continue, because it was love and family and all that helped her stick to doing what she's doing. The bootstrap paradox of her being already there was like, I am all for breaking the rules of time and trying new things, but it was still a little wonky for me.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing wrong with doing it that way, but it just, I don't know. There's something about it that's like, feels just a little cheesy.
There was yet another Doctor Who reference in this. Tom is Doctor Who man. I'm sure you got that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Pelia,
as we had the TARDIS,
makes a direct reference to it, which is quite funny.
Right.
I mean, I picked up on that. But
that is one of the things I like about this show. It has got a kind of cheekiness to it, a swagger to it. Which I do really appreciate.
Which I've always said that Star Trek does a really good job when it recognizes that campiness is baked into its DNA, and so it's got to lean into that just a little bit sometimes.
Right.
So it's like, yes, we had sets that were just the front of the building because we couldn't afford the rest of them. We're gonna have a stupid, cheeky little comment about why, or we're gonna have Data in the holodeck, and they're gonna do just really dumb things, and we're gonna have a really cheeky comment about Barclay as to why. And so, like when there's episodes where like there's kind of a wink at the camera of like, yep, it's dumb, deal with it. And I love those. I love those moments.
Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah. I suppose I probably didn't necessarily, I leaned more on the I'm not loving it part, because I felt like it was kind of Tropesville, and we've done a lot of Tropesville this season. I get that, but I think a lot of it didn't really pay off for me. I also, again, was Kirk in 50% of the season? Because it was too much for him being like, when we have the menagerie and Pike's there and they say, hey, do you know Chris Pike? Yes, I met him the one time. He literally says, I met him the one time. when he became fleet captain. And then he's in like 5 out of 10 of these episodes where he and Pike are having like this heart-to-heart talk. And even this begins where he's like, "It's great to see you, James," blah, blah, blah. It's like, it just seems like it's too much, and I've said this, as I really enjoy Paul Wesley as Kirk, and I see him as, I like him better as Kirk than I like Chris Pine, to be honest with you. Not that I'm the biggest fan of those films, but I think he's really nailing it. But it's too soon. There's rumblings. People want to see a TOS year one to follow this and stuff, and it's like, just save it. Yeah, Peter's shaking his head. No, and we've talked about that in absolutely a lot in the last couple of years. This makes me doubt if that could be great in the same way. I feel like Uhura wasn't in this episode like at all, or maybe you saw her in the background once or twice. So there were kind of decreased character moments for almost everyone, which I guess has to happen. Yeah, the inner light piece was neat. I picked some stuff out of that didn't necessarily make a lot of sense to me. But again, it was this vision he had in the 4.5 minutes that he took to tell him. I thought the deathbed thing was like they duplicated the makeup from the inner light in that, which was really, really bad old age makeup. I thought the two of them sitting there. But yeah, overall, in a season where we've had some peaks and valleys, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I thought the name of the planet was Sky Gowan, and I called it the Stargate planet because they had the big, obviously all the big pyramids, and I felt really iffy about the pyramid that had the gap in the middle. So I'm like, man, if that's artificial gravity and something gives out, it's going to be jelly. It's going to be Jello time.
That's why I kept thinking Iconians, because they kept having like really strange, fantastical technology, and then the gateways themselves.
And the big showdown at the end was very much like the power rates versus the prophets, at the end of that, even though that one didn't see to its conclusion. And at the end of it, she just becomes a statue. It's just like, well, okay. I mean, that seemed to happen very quickly, though. Like I said, the nonstop buddy cop moments in this episode where they're like, well, you're good luck on your promotion. And I was sure has been great having you here. And I'm sure nothing's going to go wrong if we go on one more mission together. It was too much. It was too tropey for me. Which is rough in a 60-year-old franchise, it's like, they say, it's like South Park versus The Simpsons. It's like, well, The Simpsons already did it. You know what I mean? So Star Trek is I've said it many times before, and sometimes can be the snake eating its own tail. They can't get away from their own tropes that every other sci-fi, franchise out there has to kind of use, because Star Trek created them, and Star Trek is a space seed from which so much of the rest of that has been spawned. So I don't know. I know maybe I'm kind of being the grumpy Gus here, but I don't know. How would you get? I would probably toss like a. Go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
Damned if they do, damned if they don't. And I've seen a bit of this in some of the more toxic areas of fandom online. An episode which repeats tropes from the past is like, why can't this show ever do anything new? And then when they bring in zombies, the fans are like, we have never had zombies on Star Trek before. They do not belong in this franchise. I mean, pick a lane.
Oh God, it's so true. It's absolutely true. So my and again, I was maybe a little harsh. I like to rate these out of 10, Tom. So I gave this one a 6 out of 10, just because of the tropes felt so heavy on me. It was great that we got Battelle out of the way, because we kind of needed that to happen, because you couldn't have her around that much longer. I was really appreciative of the end, where they were having this very solemn moment when they're like, we're moving off in a new direction. We've got, new charts that came from Sky Gowan that are enough for a 5-year mission. We're really setting that up. But, I think that Anson's performance as Pike was very reserved, obviously a lot on his mind, and he wasn't like all like, oh, hit it, even though everybody was trying to really encourage him. He was like, it was a let's see what's out there kind of moment, and off they went. And for me, I'd like to see it as that first season that I felt was kind of uneven. I'm hoping that this is setting the course for something different beyond. So I was left with, for an episode I wasn't absolutely crazy about, I was left with hope at the end that there are better things down the road. So, Peter, what about you? Where would you land this out of 10, roughly?
Probably a 7.5. Like it had there were a lot of good things that it was trying to do. There was a lot of good attempts. It's just some of the visuals kind of fell flat for me, and then the as interesting as it was, the relationship between Patel and Pike, the way that they were able, the way that they made it kind of come to fruition in a pocket universe, kind of made it then weird for me to think about Pike going with Vina on
Right.
Talos 4, since he's already had a full life with Patel. And so where does that connection, and why is Vina still like important to him
And
at that point?
we
So
also saw her in his return in Discovery season 2. They went to Talos 4,
Right.
which was like, they kind of slipped that in there, and then there was nothing that came from that ever again. So that, it's kind of weird. But
so
anyway.
it's like that. So it's just some of those like character drops that kind of drop this one for me more than anything else. So
Gotcha. Tom, what about you? How would you rank it?
Yeah, I think 6.5, 7 out of 10. That sort of range feels about right. It all got a bit frantic when they got down onto the planet, and then the very sustained, we'll call it the inner light segment, and a lot of the details in that I thought were terrific. But given that we were never really in any doubt that this was anything other than some kind of illusion, it seemed to go on for a really long time.
That's true. Yeah.
And,
like 4 or 5 segments of that. It was like bing, bing, bing.
I can't help but wishing that, like, what if they'd been a bit bolder and started the episode with that and really tried to convince us that this was on the level and then flashed back? That might have been a bit more impactful. But it was hard for me to appreciate the details, many of which were very well done. I do like it when these shows play these kind of games. Next Generation was always doing that. We'd see suddenly Riker would wake up and it was 15 years later, and he's been promoted, and Picard's retired, and we know it's not real. I used to call them cover of a comic book episodes. You'd
particularly the DC ones from the 50s, right?
You'd pick up a copy of Superman, and it would be everyone staring at him as he is half in and half out of his Clark Kent disguise. And then we actually get to page 26, and that supposedly happens. Not quite as impactful as it seemed on the cover. So that kind of thing went on a lot. But I would have liked it if they'd made a stronger commitment to actually making me believe that Patel and Pike were going to have a happy ever after. Even though intellectually I know that they can't.
Absolutely. Gotcha. All right. Well, with that, and we'll do this a little more quickly, but we'll do it kind of in a round robin fashion. But taking a look back at the 3rd season, we'll each give 2, maybe 3 if you have one, a highlight, a low light, very little bit about it, and then a hope or 2 for season 4, which I've already kind of said, but I'll say it again. So season highlights, Tom, favorite episode?
It's probably a space adventure hour. I got a lot out of 4.5 Vulcans and Terrarium 2, but Space Adventure Hour was just terrific all the way through.
Gotcha.
And it was so much fun. I loved again that the cheeky swagger of it, and deliciously, I was fooled by fake Spock, and I think I would have had a much less enjoyable experience if it hadn't fooled me. I kind of think sometimes that sort of thing is luck. If that stray thought happens to creep into your head at the appropriate moment, hang on, we're already in the holodeck, then we won't have as good a time. But I'm delighted to say that I was completely fooled, which I think is my good fortune. Good deal. That was definitely the highlight for me.
Good deal. Peter, how about you?
My highlight would probably be Terrarium. I thought that this was some really good character development for Ortegas. Finally humanized the Gorn. Like, we need to see them as sentient beings, so this was finally that moment. So there's a lot of good things that happened in here, and so that's probably my favorite bit of the season.
Gotcha. Well, you guys each snagged one of mine, but I enjoyed the Sell It That Ate Its Tail. As much as I was just bitching about, like, oh, this is the Paul Wesley show, they gave us a really solid interaction between Kirk and Spock. And, it was safe territory because it's not like, there was a point where they said, well, we really just met each other 3 weeks ago when you got assigned to the ship. You know what I mean? So they had some room to play with it. So it didn't offend me in that way. Or Peter and I are kind of canonistas. It's a little ridiculous, I'm sure, but it is what it is. But I think they spent some good time establishing that Kirk he was still a little bit more of a cowboy, and he had big ideas, but he wasn't really ready to walk the walk and talk the talk at the same time. And I think this kind of moved the character forward in that way. So I enjoyed that very much. So what's another episode you love, Tom?
I'll agree with Peter. I think Terrarium was great, but if you want me to pick one we haven't talked about yet, then 4.5 Vulcans I also thought was lots of fun. And I think the real strength of this show is how good the characters are. And it was great to see being Vulcan refracted in different ways through these different personalities. And I thought that was very effective. Actually put me in mind a little bit of another one of my favorites, and another one I've written a book about, which is Red Dwarf.
Oh, go for it.
One of the secret sauce of Red Dwarf was the fun they had playing games with the characters, like in Polymorph, where each of them loses an emotion. So you have Rimmer without his anger, Lister without his fear, and so on. Those kind of games are terrific. Or Body Swap, where they swap roles. That kind of thing is always super enjoyable, and a little bit of that here. But deepening the characters, because we saw what of the Vulcan mindset was kind of most appealing on a subconscious level to each of them. Really, really interesting stuff. And very, very funny. Gotcha.
Peter, how about you?
Another favorite.
Has it all been covered?
Yeah, we kind of covered it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll jump into one I didn't like, and on last episode we had Sean on. He was not a fan of 4.5 Vulcans, unfortunately, and for me, it was Tom, while I love and respect that you got a stance on it, I thought it just didn't make any sense. Like them walking down the hallway and spinning the Learper around. I'm like, it's not Lower Decks. It was the nod and the wink, as Peter was saying, leaning into that silliness that I'm totally on board for one of these types of shows. Now, Lower Decks are just going to go nuts. It was funny after I finished watching this episode today. It auto-played an episode. It auto-played us back in the Lower Decks, and it was the Tuvix episode, like it started beginning of season 4. And when I went out to mow the grass, and I came back in, and April was still watching it. And it was the Moopsie episode. And I was like, yes. This is absolutely great, but it's not what I want out of this live action show. So I thought it was a little too ridiculous. And again, Sean had some very serious thoughts on how it was very detrimental to Spock's character, and I understand, and go back and have a listen to that. And I respect that everybody enjoys things at a different level. So, but yeah, 4.5 Vulcans was just not that for me. So, Peter, a dislike, if you will.
I mean, we've kind of covered most of mine over the last little while, okay. But I won't go over 4.5 Vulcans again because you just did. But that, for similar reasons, I didn't really like that because of how it treated Vulcans in essence, and then Spock in particular. And I also really didn't like A Space Adventure Hour.
No, you said that at the time, and that's okay.
I really didn't like that because I am such a TOS fan, and I have to often defend TOS against a lot of like incorrect assumptions of what it is. And as much as they were potentially doing it for just cheekiness, it didn't help for me with that. Because there was a lot of comments about like, cheap sets, and then like, oh, well, the skirts are just, for objectification. It's like they weren't. That wasn't why they were doing that. And so there's just a lot of stuff. And then, people get killed, and I'm like, it's kind of weird to see some of my family members get killed on screen. So it was just, it leaned into, as I said at the time, it did too much of the Zap Brannigan version of TOS. And while it can be funny, it's just because of the weird tug we have right now of like people wanting to redo this, and then those of the Trek fans like me who just enjoy TOS, I don't think it helped that conversation. And so that is in part why I don't really enjoy it. So
I hear you. All right. Well, we'll keep the unpleasantness to a low. Tom, tell me an episode that you just did not enjoy.
I think, like I said, I think do not enjoy is probably harsh. These episodes were all entertaining. I guess What is Starfleet felt a bit filler to me. It felt like we're 2/3 way through the season. we haven't really got anything major to do to get us to the finale. Let's just do an episode that's in a different form. And sure, I appreciate the experiment, but the form kind of wasn't to me all that interesting in itself, and seemed to get in the way of the onboard ship episode story that they were including. So that one felt like a little bit of a misfire to me.
I hear you. All right. Well, let's talk. Let's get hopeful and let's talk about season 4. So I will start. My biggest hope for season 4 is and it was funny. I read a blurb about this. It was somewhat unsubstantiated that the showrunners are talking about a more serious take for season 4. Yet all we've seen of it is Pike as a Muppet. So I don't know how serious they're really planning.
A very serious Muppet. I mean,
yeah, a very serious Muppet. But no, I'm looking for a little bit more consistency. I want to make sure, and I wrote this, if only you could define this, but canon, make it work for you, not make it work against you, which I think sometimes they're doing when they're trying to do too much to write over or make you think about something in a different way. I mean, Kirk is a great example. It's like when he says, well, I only met, Pike this one time, but he's on 5 separate instances he's hanging out with the crew, or he's having a drink with Pike, or they're meeting in the bar or whatever it is. So
whereas you can do if you've ever seen the animated series The Clone Wars, they made it was a very concerted effort to make sure that Anakin Skywalker and General Grievous never met in all 7 seasons.
You didn't want to, and they pulled it off.
They did.
Yeah. So it was like overriding show notes. So Tom, how about you? What's something you'd like to see in season 4?
I'm just looking forward to more opportunities to hang out with these characters. I think maybe more than any other previous Star Trek series, this team really feels like real people who have real relationships and are really a family. Like, you get quite a lot of that in Deep Space Nine. You get some of it in Next Gen, largely due to the cast. Discovery was always a bit kind of all over the place.
Very true.
But I think it's one of the big weaknesses for me of Voyager, and especially Enterprise. Like, these don't feel like people. They feel like people who they feel like puppets who have a job to do to drive the plot.
Right.
The most,
plot puppet.
Yeah, the most human character in Voyager is almost certainly the Doctor, and if not the Doctor 7 of 9. It's none of the people. It's always the Borgs or the robots or the holograms. And that's a huge problem. It's not a problem this show has. And so I'm just looking forward to more time with these guys.
Yeah, I like that. Peter, how about you?
I am hoping that they just have some good episodes and maybe turn away from gimmicks in the sense that I'm not saying do serialized, because the episodic works just fine for me. But like, maybe when you're doing an episode, maybe just like, this would be a really funny gag, let's run with it. Maybe step away from some of the gags and maybe like look at something a little bit more complex, I guess.
Right.
So instead of like
decrease that gags to serious ratio.
So we're not just like, hey, what would happen if they became Vulcans and they were all assholes? And let's make a whole episode. It doesn't feel like there's as much substance to do. I mean,
yeah,
obviously there's a little bit more there, but like some of the episodes just felt like, hey, let's do that. Let's do zombies and let's do this. None of those are bad in themselves, but sometimes there just wasn't enough stuff there to make the episode work well. And so I think don't fall into the trap of modern cinema of just like, here's a set piece or here's a thing that I really want to see, and then I have to build everything around it to make that one thing happen. Build a little bit more around the plot and then do it. So
right, little plot sweater.
Yeah,
put a little plot sweater in the winter. All right, cool. All right, well, let's launch into the segment 2. Tom, you are very lucky you are here at the dawn of us covering our very last season of a legacy show. So, applause for Tom. You're very lucky, man. No, I'm just kidding. Cheers. But yeah, we're jumping into talking about season 7 of Star Trek Voyager. So just to give you Peter, you were about 10 years old. I was just out of college in the workforce, but still watching the show every week. Tom, were you watching all of the shows back in the day, back in the year 2000?
Not these, no. I think you could get Voyager on Sky, but
Gotcha.
I didn't have Sky for the whole of the run. So really, a lot of these shows I watched for the first time when I did my big watch through a couple of years ago.
Oh, that's great.
So I have definitely watched them. I should say, cards on the table, I haven't rewatched them in the last 48 hours for the purposes of doing this podcast. Apologies. But I do have the proofs of my book to remind
You
me
have notes.
what I thought at the time. I have extensive notes. So with
That's
any luck,
very
those
good.
will jog some memories, or if I'm stuck, I shall just read out what I wrote. And
Absolutely. And again, for the purpose of this segment, we keep things kind of brief because we're covering 7 episodes in 40 minutes. So we're not digging too deep. We'll have you back again for one of our random episodes at some point because those are always fun because then you can really dig deep.
Yeah. And then I will rewatch. I will do my homework for that.
Yes. That I would highly recommend. That's good. And similar to you, I've seen them so many times that I have a TV in my office when I'm working. It'll be on the TV, which is to my right. And if something like catches my attention, I need to turn my head and look, I will, but I know them so well. And, it's just as a memory refresher. So, all right, let's jump on into it. And this is always a little weird when we pick up with the back half of a cliffhanger. And when we did part 4 of season 6, that was quite some time back, but here we are. So anyway, we're starting with Unimatrix 0 part 2. Mike Vihar doing the directing with a story from Mike Sussman, Brandon Braga, and Joe Manaski. Teleplay by Braga and Manaski. This is from October 4th of 2000. Janeway, B'Elanna, and Tuvok are assimilated by the Borg while attempting to save a group of drones who have developed individuality. I'll start. I really liked, and it was a great cliffhanger to see the 3 of them get assimilated, which we got in the last 60 seconds of the previous spring. And that was, watching that first time, you were like, oh shit, what's going to happen now?
Oh, no.
And it was cool to watch. You didn't know, this episode jumps us right into figuring out, well, they're assimilated, but they're really not. So they're still free of conscience, which is, that's a convenient little well, the doctor gave him a something that did this and that. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's typical. And eventually Tuvok breaks down and he falls over, on the Borg side of things, and Janeway and B'Elanna have to try to get around him. Yet magically at the end of everything, I guess being a Borg is kind of like, taking your vitamins or whatever. If you take enough of them in a short period of time, you can kick the Borg infection. Where 7 of 9 has never been cured of being a Borg. She still has all of her implants because she was a Borg for 18 years, where these guys were Borgs for 18 hours, for 18 hours, and then they were able to yank everything out of it, and you never hear about them being Borg ever again. Never comes up again.
Yeah.
So that part of it's kind of convenient, I think.
Yeah, they didn't even need an episode in rural France to get over the trauma.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nobody got. Yeah, right. Because they didn't have a counselor. The best counselor they had was the doctor. Ooh, yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think overall, they found a good way to wrap this up. They're still keeping the Borg as a threat. They're like, well, they did because the Borg Queen, it was actress Susanna Thompson playing this time as opposed to Alice Krige, who was in the film, and we ended up seeing her. I think she's our Borg Queen at the end of the season, if I'm not mistaken.
Is. Yep, they bring her back for the finale.
So you get her back. You get to watch the sparring between she and Janeway, and those parts are all pretty amusing. But once again, she says, "Meow, I'll be back." Meow, you kind of get this, dastardly villain mustache twirling. Not that the Borg Queen has a mustache; that would look kind of bizarre. But regardless, but yeah,
perfection can be assimilated into whatever form.
Perfect mustache. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, as a cliffhanger wrapping things up, they could have done worse. And I remember enjoying it at the time. So, Tom.
Yep, I gave this one 3.5 out of 5. It does the job it needs to do. There are some pretty deep implausibilities along the way, and again, the characters don't really pop. I made a note here.
Yeah.
There's a brief scene between acting Captain Chakotay and acting First Officer Tom Paris, which recalls a very similar scene between Data and Worf in Gambit Part 2. But the Data and Worf scene just hits harder because we really know who those characters are. And even after 150 episodes, I kind of don't. I think you could reverse the dialogue and not notice the difference.
Wow. That's tough, but I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's a good rollicking adventure. It's all shot super well. And the stakes feel high, and I didn't guess that Tuvok was going to be the weak link. So it's good stuff, but it's just a bit thin.
Yeah. Yeah, a bit thin. Peter, what do you think?
I would tend to agree. I don't have a whole lot more to add. I thought that obviously the fact that they're able to remain Borg and not part of the collective for so long was definitely a little implausible. Hilariously, we mentioned it earlier in the video game Star Trek Borg. They actually do something similar, where Q says, "Oh, you're not Borgified," but they have a very specific way to get around that has to do with a certain mental discipline. So this was a bit weird in that it was just a neural suppressant of some sort that got that to work. The Borg killing themselves to prevent a spreading of this infection definitely made sense. The fact that the Borg Queen was then like pulling the philosophical conundrum of which hostage are you going to shoot was definitely strange to me anyway. It's like, well, if you don't tell me where they all are, I'm going to have to keep blowing up these innocent Borg cubes. And it's like, they're not.
That's look what you made me do.
Cubes exactly. Yeah. You're not giving Janeway any incentive here. Like, yes, all the drones are technically innocent in the fact that they're assimilated, but like the way that everyone talks about the Borg, it's not really the same sort of conundrum, as it were. And so it doesn't land in the same way that I think they were intending it to.
Right. Yeah, I can see that.
So, but overall, it's fun. There's a lot of interesting bits, and Borgified crew walking through a Borg ship and being ignored is definitely at least a little bit more plausible than running around in Starfleet jumpsuits and being completely ignored. So,
right. They can't say, they're doing the John Cena. You can't see me.
Although that would have been funny.
Oh,
that would have been a wink at the camera.
Right. Well, they brought The Rock back, but I don't know if Cena was on the scene back in
not at that point. Anyway, I don't think.
Anyway,
you never know. Peter, maybe Strange New Worlds will pull a blast from the past.
Oh my God!
And Cena will show up.
Just bring Peacemaker in. That would be good. That's my favorite show right now, by the way. But that's if you follow me on our YouTube channel, I was talking about Peacemaker a little earlier this week. But Peter, episode 2 is yours.
All right. Episode 2, Imperfection, directed by David Livingston, story by Andre Boromanis, teleplay by Carlton Eastlake and Robert Dougherty, aired April 11th of 2000. When her cortical implant malfunctions, 7 of 9 needs a life-saving transplant.
And I'll sneak in and say we interviewed Andre for our Spotlight segment. It hasn't come out yet, but it will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. So, yep. Andre, I hope you're listening. That is if we say something nice about this episode. And if not, I hope you're not. But you'll enjoy the chat we had with him because it's a super nice guy.
Yeah. So, yeah, this episode, it pretty much just focuses on... it's really focused on Seven's relationship with Icheb and how... Icheb kind of, obviously we have like Icheb kind of sees her as a mother figure, not really an older sister, because we've kind of had that development over the last little while. But how he's willing to sacrifice something of his own to help her, but how everyone else is not listening to that is just an interesting bit where you have Icheb trying to figure out how to be part of the crew and do all of that. And then eventually he's able to convince the doctor. It's like, oh, we're gonna do this, kind of forcing the doctor's hand in a way where he turns stuff off on his implants. It's like, I'll be fine, just do it.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, there's obviously there's a whole bit where like everyone goes and tries to find another cortical node from dead drones or what have you, and it's like, well, you can't get it from a dead drone. It doesn't work that way.
Node quest. Yeah.
So overall, pretty decent. There's not a whole lot of complex things going on here, but there is some interesting where Seven has to like rely on someone that she's been trying to guide and support, and it's like, well, now the student will now help the master sort of deal, and so there's a nice little back and forth there. So,
and they also got rid of the other Borg kids in this episode, didn't they?
They've been gone for a hot minute. At this point,
I thought isn't that what happened at the beginning of the episode?
Yeah. That's
in
my notes. So the Borgettes are on their way out.
Yeah. the Borgets baguettes, and as opposed to the baby. Remember the baby Borg? Because the kid's been on the ship for about a year. That they got rid of altogether. Like, whoa, we tried. The baby Borg fell out of an airlock or something. Never came up again. Tom, what were your thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, this one's a little better. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars, and it's mainly due to Jerry Ryan. I really remember thinking, as I did that rewatch, this is like a different show once Jerry Ryan comes on board. And by this stage, they're slightly running out of new things to do, but she's so good in this. And we know whenever she's made the focus, good things are happening. My only other note is Janeway appears to have very strong views about whether people should have to submit to medical procedures against their wishes, but what those views are do vary from episode to episode.
Right. Yeah, but the feelings are very strong.
Exactly.
Tuvix.
Yes.
Oh boy.
And there's a lovely effect shot, isn't there, where the what is it called? The node is slotted right into Jerry Ryan's forehead on camera.
Yeah, it's all the way through her brain.
Yeah, for 2000, that's really nifty.
Yeah,
and
it's in a
it still looks okay now.
Yeah, and it's a perfectly mechanical shaft, which must just go right through the middle of her brain. So it's part of her brain. So yikes. Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, I enjoyed it too. I did think adding the dynamic of the relationship with Icheb, I think, was very important for the character and the way they've really developed that, particularly considering where Icheb ends up, which we learn about Picard season 1, which is very sad. But this would be the first time I've seen this episode probably since then, even though that was 5 years ago. Just adds a lot of weight to the fact that, she was a mother to this kid. That was the only child she ever had. And this was really the real beginning of that extremely, really the strongest part of their connection. So I definitely thought it was a good one as well. All right. We'll move on into an episode that gave us a great new outfit. I know it was never one I ever got when back in my cosplaying days, but I wish I had. Episode 3 was Drive. Director is Winwich Colby. Michael Taylor handling the writing from October of 18 of 2000. The crew of the Delta Flyer enters into a subspace or a subwarp race crewed by Tom Paris and B'Elanna, and events conspire to encourage Tom to propose to her. And I will give this episode credit. I know I was pissing and moaning about tropes this whole time. This one avoided a very specific trope of the stupid wedding that you see in TV shows absolutely all the time, because they already did it for this couple. They just happen to have been, gelatinous. What the hell were those things? They were silver blobs.
Silver blood, yeah.
So silver blood, yeah. So they did it, but no, I think they ended up avoiding that in a pretty cool ways. But very effects heavy episode, and as I had mentioned, they gave us the cool flying suits, which we've never seen again, which is a shame because you never really know if those were Starfleet issue or somebody just maybe Neelix came up with them. I have no idea.
It feels like it's got like they're not asymmetrical, but like the cover flaps.
The flaps.
That feels like something that Tom was like, I saw this in a comic book once. Let's do it.
Hey, that's how I design most of my outfits. But no, I enjoyed that. And again, very effects heavy. With the race and the different aliens, you had one who's a little dirty, and again they're like she gets close to Harry, and Harry's like, Harry, you finally found a girl who's not dead or a Borg or a hologram. Nice work. Like everybody just keeps sticking it to him, but you know what?
Yeah, that was definitely a kind of wink at the camera of we know we've been doing him wrong. Okay.
But I like it. But I do like that, that Tom and B'Elanna do finally end up together at the end. Glad that they spared us a corny wedding. It happened off camera, and then they have a fun chat as they're going off on their honeymoon.
And they have
with
the blue barrels tied behind the Delta Flyer, which was
that was awesome. But yeah, Tom Torres and B'Elanna Paris. I thought it was corny, but it was a fun chat. I thought it was. I thought it was a.
Really?
Yeah. On Voyager? Really? The most serious of all the Star Trek shows? Oh, all right. What's the official word, Tom? What'd you have to say?
Yeah, this one 2.5 stars. Again, I think it's a bit trivial. It annoys me with this show in particular where they just disregard the premise of the show. So all of this, we're out here. We may as well have a good time entering this drag race.
Yeah.
The point was to get home as quickly as possible. And so this feels a bit silly. Also, it almost feels like 60s sitcom at points with Paris sneaking around behind his new missus's back. It feels like something out of the Dick Van Dyke Show.
That's fair.
I also noticed that I think the running order of Imperfection and Drive was switched, because I think you can see
okay.
he's already wearing his wedding ring in Imperfection.
That I did not notice.
Yeah, there you go.
That is true.
Good catch. Good catch. I may have read that somewhere, but it might have slipped my mind. So
I think Roxanne Dawson's really good in this. She's always really good, and it's a shame that, unlike Jerry Ryan as 7 of 9, the writers just didn't seem as inspired by B'Elanna as they were with 7, because whenever she's on camera, she's great, but she's so rarely given anything interesting to do.
yeah, that's
They
a good
tend to
point.
do that with the engineers. They either pigeonhole them into something like,
Or they're getting kidnapped
or
and
they're
tortured.
getting beat,
That's
or they're
Engineer
getting beat up.
101.
So
Yeah, they're getting beat up. She doesn't get beat up. She does the beating.
well, she does get captured
so, yeah.
by the Vidians, and
That's
horrible
true.
things
And in the first season,
So,
in the first 15 episodes.
Yeah. But other than that, like, she
Yeah.
does often do some of the beating up, but like that's just kind of
Yeah.
the trope that happens. The engineer is either like they just do the engineer stuff and it's like, Captain, something's wrong, or now I'm in a hole and I'm being beat up and I'm sad.
And I'm
Sorry, Trip.
Aw,
Sorry,
let's hope that's not the case on
And-
whoever is the engineer on the upcoming Starfleet Academy. They do a little bit better. Peter, anything else to add?
Not really. I think most has been said. I find this one kind of fun. As you said, it is trivial. Like, it doesn't add anything. It's just kind
Yeah,
of
very low stakes.
it's just
nobody's
some
gonna
kind
not
of
gonna change it.
funny Tom being dumb moments, which is pretty classic. My favorite one was kind of the where's Harry? Oh, I'm your co-pilot now. What? Like that. That was probably my favorite scene because that was just obnoxious. But I did kind of like the thing where it was, well, we just like other things, and maybe this won't work out. And I think it was Neelix who's just like, well, why don't you actually like try to do the same things together? Like, don't just let
That's
him
just crazy enough to
don't
work.
just let him go off and do it. Like, go there too. And so I
Yeah,
thought
right.
that was an interesting conversation. Then, in classic Klingon style, it's just like, I'm going to do it all the way. So I thought that was kind of funny.
To the extreme.
Yeah.
Very 90s. Yes. Cool. Good deal. All right. Episode 4 is yours, Peter.
All right, episode 4, Repression, directed by Winters Colby, story by Kenneth Biller, teleplay by Mark Haskell Smith, aired on the 25th of October in the year 2000. Ex-Maquis crew members are attacked after a data stream arrives. Well, yeah.
Well, yeah.
That's kind of what happens.
Yeah.
So, and although I'm pretty sure it's not just that they're all attacked. Don't they?
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was there's a
I'm getting it flipped in my head where like everybody goes after or the Maquis are like awoken and they go after. Isn't that the same one? Where like the Maquis crew?
I mean, kind of, sort of. Yeah, it is the same because it's
missing that whole bit where it's like they're
this
attacked,
Bajoran monk,
but then they
and
also
and he sends a code,
yeah,
and it activates Tuvok,
and then he mind melds with everybody, and then they all okay. So it's
and of course that's the whodunit until later in the episode they're like, well, we really covered it because he's doing it without his own knowledge, and then he activates all the Maquis, and then they're like, we're going to dump all the Starfleet people on this planet, and we're going to fly off on our own.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, he finally flips the script, but it was the framing sequence. It was cool because it all starts with Tom has designed a holodeck program that's a movie theater from the 1950s, and they're doing a 3D film.
Yeah.
And B'Elanna's line is great. So you want to go into a 3D environment so that we can watch a 2D film that we wear these glasses that it also becomes 3D. I think I repeated that correctly.
Yeah. And Tom in classic Tom fashion. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, it's great. She's just learned to put up with this bullshit. That's what marriage is really all about. Let me tell you, after 11 years.
The other thing which is
kind of
about this is that it's 1990s television writers being nostalgic for like their parents' generation.
Right.
But for Tom Paris, this is like 400 years in the past. It's
I know.
like you or me being nostalgic for King Henry VIII. It's kind of ludicrous.
Right. If we were.
I mean, there is bardcore music right now, so there
right.
is some precedent for it at this point.
People still get psyched about the Salem witch trials. Let's face it. Actually, April and I are going to Boston next month, and that's going to be one of the places we're going to go because she loves that kind of stuff. But Tom, what's the official word on this one?
So I think the last one, Drive, was a bad idea for an episode, often done quite badly. and I thought this was about a different episode, often done quite well. I think there's some really good atmosphere towards the end. I think Tim Russ is really, really good. I just don't think that this late in the day to dig back up the idea of the warring crew factions makes any sense at all. And especially given the last episode, everyone was all like, Voyager, Voyager, we're the best, Starfleet, Starfleet, rah, rah, rah. And then to immediately go back into this fractured crew storyline just didn't make... In syndication, when you're watching these in a random order, sure, I guess.
Yeah.
Watching them in order, I was just like, did I turn 2 pages at once? Like, what is going on here?
Right. So what was the rating?
3.5 stars.
Okay.
Above
So
average,
you...
but not...
Yeah. So you liked it, but begrudgingly. Oh, I mean, I enjoy, and again, I love the character of Tuvok. It was. I remember watching the first time. It was a cool whodunit. I didn't necessarily figure it out. It is weird at this point to see how many of the Maquis are left, because again, there was a great blogger back in the day that kept track of, well, when they would say the name of somebody on Voyager, we keep a track of it. So since we knew there were around 150 people, it would go up, it would go down. We knew it was this person. So to see all the Maquis in one place were kind of cool. We saw a lot of new faces when they were having their powwow in the mess hall. You saw people that you never saw before and never saw again. And it's weird to see blue suits too, because you figured, okay, some of the people are in science, but none of the people are in medical, because the doctor will sometimes have somebody to help him, but usually it's only Tom Paris or it's Kessler Leon. So, they still have science people. They had the science people in the Maquis when everybody was a freedom fighter. So you figured everybody would be in security. But anyway, I digress. I thought it was all right, and I enjoyed the silly setting of the movie theater. I thought that was kind of cool. But yes, I'm not. You're right. It's kind of weird that. And then last season, B'Elanna made him a TV set, and he was watching weird old cartoons. He's a weird dude. That's what it boils down to. He's into weird stuff. What are you gonna do?
Tom Paris.
That's our Tom.
Why do you think I cosplayed Tom? I'm weird.
I'm a weirdo. All right. Well, Peter, was that you or was that me? I forgot.
I did that one.
Did you read this one? I did that one. All right. Number 5 is Critical Care. Terry Wendell, which is not a name I know, did the directing. Ken Biller and Robert Doherty doing the story, and a teleplay by James Caan. See, some names that I don't know. So I think I've said it before that I think when we see some names that we're not familiar with, maybe we're dealing with a slush script or something like that, so that we're getting kind of a different take, which I like.
Yeah.
This was from
he's off on Enterprise by this stage.
Who is
Brandon Braga?
Probably, yeah. This would have been the hinge point where that's just because this is less than a year than to air for Enterprise. So yeah, so it makes perfect sense. The doctor's program is stolen, and he is forced to work in an alien hospital where he skillfully manipulates the system to provide ethical medical care. Slam dunk of an episode. I liked it, and it kind of doing what Star Trek does best, which is poking at it's certainly over here in America, poking at the never-ending horror that is, the health insurance industry, and like, well, we could get you the treatment, but you got to meet your copay, which is or you don't have this or you don't have that. So, they have the blue level, which is all the rich people that they're like, well, we'll give you this treatment because you got something wrong with your back. But you got people at the lowest level that's like, well, if you don't get this treatment, you'll be dead in about 15 minutes. And they were like, what are you going to do? I'm sorry. He's not coded for blah, blah, blah. And again, I'm obviously very much oversimplifying the issue, but it really sticks for anyone who's ever had to do the dance with an insurance company for yourself or for a loved one or just in general. So, Tom, I don't know how that compares to healthcare over in the UK. Better, worse?
I mean, listen,
somewhere in the middle.
I'm all for sneering at the ludicrous state of the American healthcare system. But to continue my previous form of analysis, I think this was a good idea for an episode, often not done very well. I kind of appreciate the intent, but I didn't think the satire. I didn't think it was. I don't think it's you simplifying the issues. I think it's the episode simplifying the issues. This all felt a bit obvious to me. There are things I liked. I liked Larry Drake. In fact, this is a real who's who of recognizable faces from 80s, 90s television, because you also got
that guy
from 24. You've got Jim O'Heir.
Oh, terrific!
Recreation. You even got the voice of Kit, William Daniels, in there. You've got all sorts of people, but. It's a weird blind spot that 90s Trek writers had about technology. I think when I was on before, and certainly this is something that comes up a few times in my book, I pointed out that for all they anticipated the iPad, they didn't anticipate email. Like whenever anyone has to transmit data from one place to another, someone always walks in holding an iPad and gives it to somebody else. And so likewise, with the idea of the Doctor's program, they never really have the idea of what it means to be made of code. Like he's never backed up except when the plot requires that he is. He's never copied except when the plot requires that he is. So the idea that he is down on the planet and therefore Voyager has lost him just doesn't make any sense. You could have as many Doctors as you wanted, and you could freeze his personality at any point in time you wished. And so normally I'm happy to overlook that, but when the plot centers on the nature of his existence, it is kind of hard to get away from.
Yeah, I hear you. It's funny because at the time, one of my first jobs out of college, I worked for an enterprise software company, and one of our walk-in was like, well, this will be something to be used in a medical situation that a nurse can be taking notes on a tablet and plug it in, and then it'll be stored somewhere. And that was fantastical technology in 2000. But that's exactly what you're talking about, or the Death Star plans in Star Wars. In Rogue One, it was such, we can't beam them. And now that we beam them, we have to walk them from this to that because it gives Darth Vader a chance to kill everybody. You know, it was just like, oh, Peter, what about you?
Just to point on the hologram thing, I think that one of the reasons why we didn't see like copies, because when we had the backup one for the Living Witness one,
I think was the one.
I personally thought that was a little weird. If only because I think part of the reason that they don't have backups of the Doctor specifically is because he is a person with sentience. And if you were to do that, then it would blur the lines as to whether or not he's a sentient person with rights or if he's someone who we can just erase his memory and restore an earlier version.
Right. Which is funny because remember back in the Alpha Quadrant, they used that program in mining.
Yeah. I'm not saying
like a dozen of them.
But I'm just saying, I think that's in part why we don't have copies of him, which at least in my head, that's what allowed this episode to happen, is they don't have copies for that reason.
I mean, in theory, they can use the transporter as a backup of everybody. But again,
Strange World just did that, so
you do need that too much, and you break the plot.
Yes,
right. Yeah, it's a slippery slope.
You have multiple metaphysical questions if you start to do that, and I don't want to do that. So, I do agree that the commentary in this episode is a little bit 2x4-ish, which I generally complain about with a lot of different episodes.
I'm gonna use that one a lot. I like that.
So I think that this one, maybe it's because I've had multiple unpleasant experiences with this kind of stuff that I don't mind the 2x4 as much.
That's kind of how I felt too, having kids and stuff, and dealing with all that in my past.
But I would tend to agree that this lacks the subtlety that some of the other Star Trek episodes that deal with sensitive, maybe this one isn't necessarily sensitive, but topics that are specifically related to a real life situation that is ongoing. So in that sense, I think it doesn't quite hit the mark of other episodes that do that better. But I do think that this had some good things to say about that, where it's like, oh, well, this person just doesn't contribute to society. Well, he doesn't get the right medicine. How can you make that judgment, dingbat? You sit behind a desk and do nothing.
Right. You push buttons.
It's like, you don't contribute to society. You just tell people what they're worth. That's stupid. Which is kind of what they pull at the end. It's like, you're red. You don't do shit. So you don't get medicine. So I thought that it was an interesting exploration in how they set things up. It was a little bit simplistic and 2x4-ish. So it's not great in that sense, but like you can see the reasoning behind it. And so I like it for that. And obviously the Doctor being confronted with just subpar medical reasoning is always amusing because he's like, what? And it's just funny to see the Doctor just flip out about someone doing something, just even if it's just a little bit different than how he does it. But this is way different from how he does it. So he flips out even more. And so that's just, I don't know if it's just the Schadenfreude in me that enjoys seeing the Doctor freak out, or if it's just, who knows? But it's funny.
All right. Next one's you, Peter,
I
I think.
Episode 6 is Inside Man, directed by Alan Craker, written by Robert Dougherty, aired on November 8th of 2000. A hologram of Reginald Barclay, known as Reg, is sent to Voyager, supposedly to implement a dangerous plan to bring them home. But the hologram has been tampered with by none other than the Ferengi, who are trying to steal Borg nanoprobes from 7 of 9, who will not survive the trip. Surprise, no one would.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, my goodness. All right. Where does this rate on the Tom scale?
I like this one. 4 out of 5 stars. One of the things I wrote down is Tom Paris's line, "Our shortcuts have a habit of blowing up in our faces," because he's been watching Voyager 2.
Yes. Yes, he has.
He knows how these stories work. But it's great to see Dwight Schultz again, and Marina Sirtis for that matter. Again, I didn't immediately guess where this one was going. The Ferengi are a bit, they're a bit like, they're TNG season 2
Bad
Ferengi.
apples.
They're not DS9 season 6 Ferengi. And that's a bit painful. But it's a great little fake out. And it's what I came to realize with Voyager is at its best when it is just going all out bonkers. This isn't going to make a whole lot of sense, but we're just going to find ways to have a lot of fun with it. And I had a lot of fun watching this episode.
Yeah. Me too. The only part of it I found unwatchable was Reg's speech when he's impersonating the captain. I was like, it's too corny for me. The egg emergency. It's like this. It was
a bit cringe.
Knock it off,
as they say.
You need to just stop. What's that meme of Michael Jordan? Just stop. Just get some help. Just stop.
Yeah.
No, I enjoyed this very much. Dwight Schultz, the Reg character, is legendary. I mean, this is one that relies very heavily on Voyager's connection to TNG, or leaning into that, working on getting people interested. But I enjoy the post Pathfinder episodes that they drop in there, giving you a connection to back home after DS9 is over, because it's the only connection that we do have. So I like that. I like seeing Marina. I love her character. I've met her in person. She's quite a firecracker. I enjoy her as a human being. So I love seeing the character. Admiral Paris and the much put upon Commander Harkins, who is Reg's boss. Enjoyed revisiting all those characters. And yeah, you're right. The Ferengi this does feel like a big step back for the Ferengi. And this is even, post Rom taking over as Nagus, where he kind of scattered a lot of the profit mongering. But again, maybe these guys maybe they're outlaws. That always works with anything. If you want Klingons acting badly when they're not supposed to, they're renegades. If you want, they did it in TNG. They had the renegade Ferengi with the birds of prey and the episode Rascals. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's ways around it regardless. But yeah, it had a lot of fun. Enjoyed watching it, and yeah, that's where it's at. So cool. Any other thoughts? I lost my train of thought if I asked everybody.
Pretty fun. I thought that you have to have seen Next Generation for some of it to make sense with how Reg is not super confident socially, and he programmed me to be the life of the party. Like, it totally tracks if you know the character.
Yeah.
Right.
Which they do kind of show a little bit when they go back to Earth, hey, I was dating this Dabo girl. Well, I was dating this teacher. She's a Dabo girl. She works for the Ferengi.
Yeah, right.
Classic. That was pretty funny. And then at the end, hey, Reg, we're going to take you on a double date, basically. We found a teacher. She really a teacher?
A real one.
Yes, Reg. She's a real teacher.
And her name was Meryl, which made me think of Maris from Frasier, which was obviously very popular at the time. So
maybe that's why they did it. But it was just, there was a lot of, whenever they bring in Barclay's just really hysterical. Yeah. He kind of steals the show because he's just that ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's always enjoyable. And then Tom going, all of our shortcuts blow up.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of stealing the show, we wrap up with episode 7, which is Body and Soul, directed by Robbie Duncan McNeil, who is just, that has been his post-Voyager career, and he was just really getting his start, obviously, at this point. Story by Michael Taylor, teleplay Eric A. Morris, don't know that name, Phyllis Strong, and Mike Sussman. Those names sound very familiar. Again, from November of 2000, during an emergency on a mission, a lot of things start that way, the Doctor is forced to upload his program into 7 of 9's Borg implants, and as Peter Trevor is fond of saying at this point, shenanigans ensue, allowing him to experience real sensations for the first time. So, you know, you got, Tom, as you were describing it, you got your two strongest characters on the show, hamming it up to the nth degree. Well, yeah, you got Picardo being Picardo, but then
you got
Ryan being Picardo, and you got a winner all over the place. So this is a fun episode. So where does it rate in the Pantheon?
This is definitely my favorite of this little collection of episodes. 4.5 out of 5. Just completely delightful all the way through. Again, don't come to this episode for hard science fiction or searing social commentary. But if what you want is to see one really, performers at the top of their game, having the time of their lives, then you'll find it here. And that's a very pleasant way to spend 50 minutes watching television, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree. And I'll jump ahead to say this is my favorite of the block as well, which is always how we wrap up. We do a favorite and least favorite. So I got that part out of the way. But yeah, tons of fun. You get to see a comedic range in Jerry Ryan that obviously you don't get to see in this character. And again, for a lot of us, this was the first thing that we'd ever really seen her in with any significance. And it's the role that we, especially as Trekkers, associate her with in anything else that you might see.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely nailing it, having fun. Everybody's enjoying it. You know, the stakes are, fair to middling, because, they always find a way to get out of it because it's a weekly show, but, there's never any real danger. But, the alien guy she's working with gets a crush on her. And then they have a moment at the end and he's saying, well, I really did like spending time with you, even though if I'm not into you, I just really like spending time with you. And I hope we can be friends. And but then, there's somebody like he still sets up him and Megan, what's her face? I can't remember the actress's name who played the female foil.
Yeah. Megan Gallagher.
Yeah, Megan Gallagher, who has been in DS9, a couple of different roles and a lot of other stuff. So she's very familiar. So yeah, a blast of an episode. Tons of fun, top shelf stuff. So Peter, what about you?
I thought this one was hilarious. It had so many ridiculous things of when they take the doctor out and it's like, oh, the doctor overindulged. You saw everything. I saw everything. I feel everything too. That moment alone sold the episode for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's just so much ridiculousness. There's kind of the doctor's trying to pretend to be 7 at certain points, especially it's like, well, the captain seems to like you. And so you need to get there. And like, so the doctor trying to be like flirty is just like awful. So there's just lots of really funny parts yeah, it's just a fun episode. It doesn't have a whole lot to say. It's more of a,
right.
What if something silly happened? And they were in danger
look like this
at the same time, which, is a classic kind of setup for an episode. But I think this one does it really, really well. And it's an enjoyable romp of just absolute ridiculousness.
I think Silly Danger just took the lead for the name of the episode. Danger is my middle name. Well, cool. All right. Well, Tom and I have already declared in bold voice that Inside Man or Body and Soul is our favorite episode of the batch. How about you, Peter? What's a favorite for you?
Just to be different, I'm going to say Inside Man, just because the shenanigans
be my number 2.
Barclay hologram on Voyager is just enjoyably stupid. And where you have the difference of like the crew going like, yeah, this will work, and then like some going like, no, it's too good to be true. So there's just that kind of dichotomy on the crew, especially when it's kind of flopped and who's being overly excited and who's not.
Right.
Or at the very end where they tease Kim again about it. It's like, hey, we just heard from this other guy. He's got this Iconian gateway and it's going to work. Really? No.
Are you? No, it's not going to work.
First of all, we said Iconian. So why would you think that that's a thing that's actually going to still function?
Yeah, right.
So like, I enjoy just the ridiculousness, but Body and Soul is like up there too. So like, those are my two favorite, but just to be different, I'll say Inside.
Yeah. Very fair. All right. So let's pick a least favorite. Tom, what was the strikeout for you?
Yeah, it's probably Drive. It's like I said, it ignores the premise of the show and then proceeds not to do anything terribly interesting with that. And they edit in the wrong order, which is a minor crime, but I think worth pointing out.
Right.
Just not. I don't think any of these episodes are terrible, but that's just one that isn't particularly interesting.
Right. Perfectly fair. Well, for me, I'm going to say right off the bat, we said it was kind of one of the other runners up for the name of this episode was Implausible Borgability, which would be Unimatrix Zero Part 2. They can't be like, well, I'll give you this thing. And then it was like the Borg thing never happened. It was too, everything about it was too convenient. And it's not supposed to be convenient. There's supposed to be some heft to it. And your argument is, the heft that is a 7 of 9 had this long lost love and they're going to see each other. Okay, fine. But yeah, while it was great that maybe we didn't see the Tuvok twist coming, the rest of it was too, it was a bridge too far for a lot of the other stuff. So, all right, Peter, take us home. What's your dud?
I'm going to actually go with Repression.
Okay.
In part for the same reasons that Tom mentioned, where it's like, why are we dredging this up at the end of season 7?
Right.
But also just mostly it's like, why are we bringing this up? And then it's like, we're just going to have the crew fight. Okay. It didn't feel like there wasn't really any character development or there really wasn't anything that was a consequence of this episode. So
right.
It's just kind of like, and the Bajoran somehow hijacked the Starfleet transmission. Never gets mentioned again. No one knows how.
Right.
How are you breaking into Pathfinder from a cave in Bajor?
Right.
There's just lots of things that just don't quite make sense for me with that one. And then also, how do you get the most, leaning back to Unimatrix Zero, how do we get the person with the most mental discipline to be the first one to break?
Yeah, right. Ooh, okay. I'm really good at this.
So it's not like the whodunit part in some of the set and some of the setting. It's not like it's bad, but it's just kind of the one that I enjoy the least. So
yeah. Perfectly fair. All right. Well, that's the end of the show. For us, Tom, awesome to have you back.
Thank you,
glad to have you on our team. Where do people find you out there?
You can find me on my blog, tomsalinsky.co.uk. You can find me on my movie podcast, Best Pick. We've been reviewing the top 10 films in the Sight and Sound poll. We just released our episode on Beau Travail, and we have one coming up on Stanley Kubrick's 2001. I also have a brand new podcast, which at the time of recording hasn't been released yet, but might be released by the time this goes out. Episode 0 goes out on the 2nd of October, and it is called All British Comedy Explained, which I sit down with an American comedian friend of mine, Abigail Shimon, who is based in London, has been for 11 years, but despite that, her knowledge of British television comedy is nothing short of woeful. And between us, we intend to put that right. So our first season is on landmark shows, will include things like Monty Python's Flying Circus, Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, not only but also The Young Ones and more. So
Red Dwarf.
Search all your podcatching apps for All British Comedy Explained, and subscribe now.
Awesome. Gotcha. And we'll post some links in the show notes as well. So this has been terrific. Peter, where do people find you out there?
You can find me around the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas. I'm on most social media. I'm not active, but you can poke at me and I might say something. If I'm active at all, it's on our Discords. You can also find me over on ELH's Twitch and YouTube channel, where I play a Temerian engineer. And you can also find me behind the scenes on Starship Excelsior. Our next episode is coming out in a couple months. So
awesome. Good deal. And I can be found at kind of my big 3 socials, which would be Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky as at the C3, TheCeeThree. But also find us on all of those same ones. Search Secret Friends Unite. I've also been expanding, doing shorts on the Secret Friends Unite TikTok, and YouTube. So I'm jumping on, trying to do something quick, trying to keep you out there. I jumped on last night, talked about how I'm loving Peacemaker, talked about the Stephen King's The Long Walk. April and I did a little blurb on that. So trying to stay out there, but definitely like, follow, and subscribe us there. Just search Secret Friends Unite. And with that, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to tell you, as always, that sharing is caring, and keep on trucking. Trek.
Peace and long life.
Cheerio.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.